Welcome to this month's roundup of news and polls from Ipsos MORI. We're of course down to the last two candidates in the Conservative leadership battle. Both Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt have seen a rise in the proportion of the public who say they have what it takes to be a good Prime Minister. Mr Hunt is now on 31%, Mr Johnson on 34%. But Boris Johnson for the British public is a very polarising figure, and so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. In terms of the current party leaders, the best performing is currently Mr Farage, who has 35% of the British public who say they're happy with how he does his job. This is well ahead of Mrs May and even further ahead of Jeremy Corbyn, who currently has one of the lowest ratings for any leader of the opposition Ipsos MORI has ever measured, only 17%. When we look at Mr Farage, interestingly, of course, more Conservative voters are happy with how he's doing his job as leader of the Brexit party than they are with their own current leader, Mrs May. Quite striking. Other things, satisfaction with our government is really, really low, at pretty much historic low levels. We've got only 8 people in 100 who say they're happy with how the government's doing its job. And the two main parties are neck and neck, with only a quarter of the electorate, roughly, saying that they might vote for either of them at a general election as our party politics becomes ever more volatile, with the Liberal Democrats snapping at their heels and the Brexit Party too not far behind, although down from its recent win in the Euros. Nobody is confident about any of our leaders getting a good deal on Brexit. Mr Corbyn gets only 24% who think he might get a good deal. Boris Johnson does better at 41% and Jeremy Hunt is at 37%, but nobody gets a majority. Overall, Britain is becoming more negative about the future. 79% of us now say the country is on the wrong track. Nearly 6 out of 10 of us say they expect the economy to get worse over this year, and with a no-deal Brexit a prospect, with do or die, as Boris Johnson puts it, they might be right. And with more and more protests about the environment, in other news, we have a rise in concern about climate change and the environment and pollution to the highest score we've seen in decades. The question is whether, with all of this noise about Brexit and the economy, anybody will notice. Another thing that we've looked at this month is human rights in trade and also refugees. And interestingly, Britain is not shutting its face to the rest of the world or throwing its principles out. 50% of the public should say we should only trade with countries that have a good human rights record, even if it harms our economy. And that's one of the highest figures in the world, similar to Sweden. So principles do seem to matter still. And we've got 72% of us who say that we should support refugees who are fleeing war or persecution. And again, that's one of the highest figures anywhere in the world. So Britain, perhaps, if it's leaving the European Union, is not shutting itself off from the rest of the world. Much more this month on the importance of building brands and how one needs to build really strong memories with great creative content and brilliant customer service, and some really interesting examples in the newsletter of people doing that. Britain is becoming a little bit less neighbourly, and we've looked in depth at the NHS, which remains an issue of huge concern to the British public. Thank you very much. See you next month.